Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. My email is still tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Today we are discussing a lovely Habring Chrono-Felix Monopusher Panda. The watch 38.5 millimeters in diameter, 12.7 millimeters thick, 46.5 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. This watch is made of stainless steel and comes on a wonderful oily nubuck calfskin leather strap. Throwing it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see that the watch is relatively constrained from lug to lug. It's nowhere near the edge of my wrist, even over the top, which exaggerates the width of a watch, and I'm pulling it tight to fit. You can see that the lugs are not over the edge of my wrist, and down the barrel, which is always the most telling shot, you can see the lugs really are nowhere near the edge, so I can recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. It's fairly thin, being only 12.7 millimeters with a generously sloped bezel and a ramped case flank. It will slide easily underneath the cuff. The timepiece will serve as both a sporty all-arounder and a dress watch. This timepiece, made in Volkermarkt, Austria by the Habring husband and wife team of Richard and Maria, is a lovely low-volume independent with classical beauty to it. They make a lot of different styles, but this combination of panda and no-date design seems classically beautiful with enduring appeal. It could have been made in the middle of the 20th century. It could have been made today. It will look just as good in the middle of this century, 2050, 2060. It is timeless. Of course, Richard and Maria Habring, an interesting pair. They only make a few dozen of any given model in any given year. Richard with a long heritage dating back to IWC and Lange, today building under his own name, including manufacture calibers. The strap, of course, minimally tanned with a sort of suede nubuck texture. It's called oily nubuck. It doesn't literally mean that there are oils that'll leave a mark on your skin or clothes. It just means it has a very slick and supple feel. On the bottom, you can see a more conventional calfskin. You can see that the strap is brand new, no crimping, no gouging. It comes with a simple steel pin buckle, polished, and then a case that has a classical 20th century aesthetic with squared off lug ends, no beveling on the lugs, an unsigned crown, and then strap tool holes. This was a deliberate choice to make a watch that feels like something that could have been made in the 40s, 50s, or 60s. You have blended lugs with satinated midcase. Lug hoods and bezel are polished. You can see the lug is stepped in very slightly from the midcase to thin it out. It has a very slight vertical lip outboard and a very slight vertical lip inboard with a conical profile between them. Again, the unsigned crown is a vintage evocative touch made deliberately. We have a slightly cambered crystal that sits over a satin silver, really an opaline silver, so lightly frosted dial. We have sub-registers for running seconds and chronograph minutes. Those have a slight countersink and a concentric pattern inside. Vintage evocative baton hands, as well as a lancet-style seconds hand that you can see has been bent over a mini roller to curve it at the edge, and you can see that as well. We have transferred indices and a numeral 12 up at 12 o'clock. The seconds hand is beautifully blued. You can see there is a little triangular index on the minutes register, and that is instantaneous jumping minutes. You can also see another vintage element, as we have little hash marks at 3, 6, and 9 minutes, designed to evoke the period during which mid-century long-distance phone calls were actually billed in 3-minute increments. So you have 3, 6, and 9, because once upon a time it was very useful to use your chronograph to keep track of those long-distance charges, which were onerous for a large part of the middle 20th century. So you have that mid-20th century aesthetic right there. Now, the watch does feature one modern function, which is a hacking seconds function, because the movement is 7750 based, and it is a monopusher as well, which means you have to pick your moment. When you stop, you are committed to resetting. But it has super crisp action. If you'd ask me, is this a cam or a column wheel chrono, I would have said column wheel, because it is so crisp. And although the movement has an architecture based on the 7750, It is made entirely by the Habrings and their suppliers in Austria. So this is called the A11C for chronograph, and you can see the cam system, partially blued, fully satinated with brushed finishes, circular and linear. Screws are both polished and fired blue. We have a circular satin finish across the top of the chronograph bridge. We have engine turning on the train bridge below that. You could see that the cam spring has been satinated across its top and beveled on its edge. You can also see that the spring for the hammer, you see the hammer right there, it has been satinated across its top and polished on its edge. The hammer itself, again, polished on the hammer itself, but the lever that sits atop the hammer has been satinated and also beveled on its side, which is quite impressive. And you can see how the start-stop lever has been satinated on both its spring and its base below that. And you can also see the hammer has been satinated. So this is a deceptively well-finished movement. You can also see on the edge of the chronograph bridge, there's a very credible mirrored anglage going on. And because they're only making a few dozen of any given model in any given year at Habring, they can spend that extra time to make it beautiful. You could see that the lateral clutch, just below my finger, has also been polished on its top. And then we have satination on the wheels. We also have satination on the bridge for the escapement below the balance, and a lovely contrasting gold coloration for that bridge as well as for the regulator. It is manual wind with a 48-hour power reserve and a 4 Hz beat rate. And like a 7750, it is 30 millimeters in diameter, which gives it a good size to properly fill out this large case back. You can also see that the base plate has been media blasted, and there's a combination here of both polished and blued screws. Now, the oscillating pinion operates in conjunction with the cam system. You could see it right there, engaging and disengaging, engaging and disengaging. The oscillating pinion is germane to 7750 architectures. It is a fine-toothed engagement that's increasingly being used by high-end brands that want to have the beauty of a lateral clutch, but with the precision of a vertical. When you press and hold with an oscillating pinion, most of the time it doesn't jump or stagger in any way. It is a lateral clutch that has a lot of the seamless engagement qualities of a vertical clutch, and that's why it's here. And then all of this is water resistant down to 30 meters, so it is not an aquatic timepiece, but sufficient if you get caught out in the rain or splashed. It is a deceptively well-finished movement, and the longer you look, the more you find. If you want a really cool indie brand that is serviceable anywhere in the world and will let you get on a first-name basis with your watchmaker, buying a Habring is a really great way to get independent watchmaking into your collection without spending the price of a car or a house. If you love this watch, reach out to me. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.